The smell hit first, bitter, scalding coffee soaking through my bright yellow dress in seconds. I stood frozen in the conference room as brown liquid spread across the fabric, the heat burning through to my skin. 20 colleagues watched in stunned silence. Then his voice cut through the quiet, dripping with fake concern. Oops. Don't worry, Madison. I'm sure you've got plenty more where that came from. Darren Kellerman, my manager, set down his now empty cup with theatrical precision. After all, I bet you're better at shopping than closing deals. Why don't you leave this game to the big boys? The laughter started small, nervous chuckles from the junior associates unsure if they should be horrified or amused. Then it spread. Some laughed out of discomfort, others out of fear. A few genuinely found it funny. I felt my cheeks burn. My hands trembled as coffee dripped onto my shoes. My quarterly review presentation, 3 weeks in the making, lay forgotten. Coffee spreading across every page. My body temperature rose as rage and humiliation built inside me, my mind racing to process the situation I'd just been thrown into. While everyone focused on my humiliation, they missed one crucial detail. My phone, propped against my laptop to review my notes, had been recording the entire meeting. Darren Kellerman had no idea he'd just documented his own downfall. My name is Madison. My manager thought pouring coffee on me would put me in my place, just another woman who didn't belong in his boys' club. He laughed. They all did. But here's what Darren didn't know. I'd been recording everything, and his promotion party was next week. Sometimes revenge is best served in front of everyone who matters. Watch what happens when the footage rolls. In the bathroom, I locked myself in a stall and let the tears come. Not from weakness, from rage. The dress clung to my skin, sticky and uncomfortable. I peeled it away from my body and saw the damage clearly. The stain had spread across the entire front, ruining the delicate fabric. This wasn't just any dress. It was the one my mother had bought me 3 years ago, 2 weeks before the cancer took her. We'd gone shopping together on one of her good days, when she had enough energy to leave the house. This one, she'd said, pulling it off the rack. Yellow suits you, Maddie. Bright and bold. Don't ever let anyone dim that light. She'd insisted on paying, even though I knew she couldn't afford it. For your first big presentation, she'd said. You're going to change the world, my girl. Today was supposed to be that presentation. The one that would secure the Henderson account and prove I belonged here. Instead, I stood in a bathroom stall, dabbing at the dress with paper towels that only made the stain worse. I heard her voice in my head, clear as day. Chin up, Maddie. Be confident. Don't let anyone make you feel less than you are. I stopped blotting. This was war. Back at my desk, I transferred the video from my phone to my laptop, my fingers steady now despite the adrenaline coursing through me. The quality was perfect, crystal clear audio, Darren's smug face in full view. I watched it 3 times, each viewing making my anger crystallize into something sharper. The way he'd accidentally bumped into me. The calculated pause before his sexist joke. The satisfied smirk when everyone laughed. This wasn't his first offense. For 6 months, I'd endured his comments. Maybe we're something less distracting. Women get too emotional about business. Let me explain this in simpler terms. But this was different. This was public humiliation designed to break me. I created a new folder on my personal drive, insurance. The video went in, along with screenshots of emails where he'd taken credit for my work, messages where he'd called me sweetheart despite my protests, and the performance review where he'd rated me needs improvement. The same week I'd landed our biggest client. But I couldn't use it yet. Not when HR would sweep it under the rug. Not when he had the CEO's ear. I needed to wait for the perfect moment, when the damage would be irreversible. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Keep your head down. He's protected here. The next morning, Darren acted like nothing had happened. He strolled past my desk, whistling, and dropped a stack of his paperwork on my keyboard. Need these formatted by noon, sweetheart, he said, loud enough for the whole floor to hear. Think you can handle that? I smiled. Of course. 2 hours later, I discovered my project folder. 6 months of work on the Stratton Group proposal had been deleted from the shared drive. No backup. No recovery. Just gone. Oh, that's strange, Darren said when I reported it to him, his voice dripping with false concern. Technology can be so tricky for some people. Good thing the deadline isn't until, oh wait, tomorrow. In the afternoon meeting, he presented my quarterly analysis as his own. Word for word. Slide for slide. When the CFO complimented the thorough research, Darren glanced at me and winked. It's all about experience, he said. Some people have it, some people, well, they're still learning. I took notes in my notebook, documenting everything. Times, dates, witnesses. Let him think I was taking meeting minutes. In reality, I was building a case. That night, I worked until 3 a.m., recreating the Stratton proposal from memory. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of watching me fail. During lunch in the break room, I sat alone at a corner table, picking at my salad while two account managers from the third floor gossiped nearby. They didn't notice me. I'd become invisible after the coffee incident. People avoided me like failure was contagious. Did you hear about Hartman Industries? One of them said. They dropped Sterling Corp last month over that discrimination lawsuit. My ears perked up. Hartman's CEO is militant about that stuff, the other replied. Zero tolerance. They even have a clause in their contracts now, any hint of workplace discrimination and they walk. Smart business move. They're our biggest client. Can you imagine if something like that happened here? My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. Hartman Industries. 30% of our company's revenue. The contract Darren had been desperate to manage. The pieces started falling into place. Our CEO, Richard Cross, had spent 6 months courting Hartman's business. He'd restructured entire departments to meet their diversity requirements, hired consultants, made public commitments, and Darren's promotion party was next week. The party where Hartman's executives would be present, where Darren would be crowned senior director in front of everyone who mattered. I looked down at my phone at the video file saved in my hidden folder. Sometimes opportunity doesn't knock, sometimes you have to build the door yourself. The promotion rumors became official on Wednesday. An email from Richard Cross himself announcing the celebration of excellence for Darren Kellerman's advancement to Senior Director of Strategic Accounts. The party would be held at the Riverside Ballroom, black tie optional, open bar guaranteed. 8 years of dedication and exceptional leadership, the email read. I almost choked on my coffee, ironic considering. Darren strutted around the office like he'd already won. He moved into the corner office early to get a feel for it. Set up his golf trophies on the shelf. Hung his MBA from Columbia prominently on the wall, right next to a photo of him shaking hands with the governor. You should come to the party, Madison, he said, stopping by my desk. Might learn something about real success. Wouldn't miss it, I replied. He laughed. Wear something nice. And try not to spill anything on yourself this time. After he left, I pulled up the guest list that someone had accidentally left on the printer. My heart raced as I scanned the names. Board members. Industry journalists. Major clients. And there it was, 3 lines from the bottom. Alexandra Hartman, CEO of Hartman Industries. The universe had just handed me a gift. Darren's coronation would become his execution. I became a hunter, stalking my prey with patience. In every meeting, I asked carefully crafted questions designed to make Darren reveal himself. Darren, how do you think we should approach the female demographic for the Hartman campaign? I asked during Thursday's strategy session. He rolled his eyes. Women are emotional buyers. Just show them something pretty and talk about feelings. They don't need the technical details. It confuses them. I watched the junior associates shift uncomfortably. Darren didn't notice. He was on a roll. That's why I prefer working with men, he continued. Less drama. More logic. No offense, Madison, but you ladies tend to take things too personally. None taken, I said sweetly, my phone recording from my lap. Could you elaborate on that? And he did. For 10 minutes, Darren Kellerman explained why women were biologically unsuited for high-pressure sales. Why maternity leave was a burden on productivity. Why the wage gap was really about dedication, not discrimination. The room grew quieter with each word. Even his usual supporters looked uncomfortable. But Darren was too drunk on his own power to notice the shifting atmosphere. "Anything else?" he asked, satisfied with his sermon. "No," I said, saving the recording. "I think you've made your position perfectly clear." Friday afternoon, I found Leah from marketing crying in the supply closet. She'd been there 2 years longer than me, always professional, always composed. Now mascara streaked down her cheeks. "He told Richardson I was too emotional to handle the Hartman creative brief," she said. "Called me hormonal in front of the entire creative team." I handed her a tissue. "Darren." She nodded. "He's been worse since the promotion announcement. Like he's untouchable now." I looked around, making sure we were alone. Then I showed her the coffee video on my phone. Her eyes widened as she watched Darren's performance, his cruel words echoing in the small space. "You recorded it?" "I record everything now." Leah leaned in closer. "You're planning something." It wasn't a question. I nodded. "The promotion party?" Another nod. She was quiet for a moment. Then, "You didn't hear this from me, but Richardson let something slip yesterday. The CEO worships Hartman Industries. Would do anything to keep them happy. And Alexandra Hartman? She's coming to the party specifically to evaluate our company culture. Some kind of partnership expansion they're considering." "Or not considering," I said quietly. Leah smiled for the first time. "Or not." Darren picked the wrong week to show his true colors. We left the closet separately. But now I wasn't alone. Monday morning brought a surprise. A yellow sticky note on my monitor, the handwriting sharp and angular, careful. "He's untouchable." No signature, but I recognized the writing. Diane from HR. The same woman who'd handled my previous complaint about Darren's inappropriate comments. The complaint that had mysteriously disappeared from my file. I looked across the office. Diane stood by the coffee machine, watching me. When our eyes met, she shook her head slightly, a warning. I crumpled the note and tossed it in the trash where she could see. Then I opened a new email to Darren. "Quarterly reports attached for your review." The attachment was legitimate, boring, and harmless. But the message was clear to anyone watching. I was playing along. Diane relaxed and went back to her desk. What she didn't see was me fishing the note out of the trash an hour later, smoothing it out, and adding it to my evidence folder. Even warnings could be proof. Proof that people knew Darren was a problem. Proof that the company chose to protect him anyway. That afternoon, Darren stopped by my desk. "Smart girl," he said quietly. "Keep your head down, do your work, and maybe you'll still have a job next week." I decided to test the waters with HR one more time. Tuesday morning, I scheduled a meeting with Diane and brought a small sample, just the coffee incident video. "I wanted to discuss what happened last week," I began. Diane barely glanced at my phone screen before pushing it back across the desk. "Madison, that was clearly an accident." "Darren's already apologized, hasn't he?" "No, actually." "Well, I'm sure he meant to. You know how busy he's been with the promotion preparations." She folded her hands primly. "Besides, it was just harmless banter. You can't take these things so personally. He said women shouldn't be in sales." He was joking. "Darren has a unique sense of humor. You need to develop thicker skin if you want to succeed here." I collected my phone slowly. "So you're saying there's nothing the company will do?" "I'm saying," Diane leaned forward, her voice dropping, "that Darren Kellerman brings in 40% of our revenue. He has relationships with clients going back a decade. And you've been here, what, 2 years? Do the math." "I understand," I said, standing up. "Good. I'd hate to see you throw away your career over a misunderstanding." Translation: "We're not risking our golden boy." "Fine. I'd go higher. Much higher." Wednesday brought an unexpected gift. Leah accidentally left a manila folder on my desk while I was at lunch. Inside, the complete guest list for Darren's promotion party, along with seating arrangements and the evening's schedule. I scanned the names, my heart racing. It was better than I'd hoped. Not just Alexandra Hartman, but 3 other client CEOs. 2 business journalists from the Financial Tribune. The entire board of directors. Even the company's biggest investor, Charles Whitman, known for his conservative views on corporate culture. The seating chart was even more interesting. Darren would be at the head table with Richard Cross and Alexandra Hartman. The journalists were strategically placed for the best view of the podium, where Darren would give his acceptance speech. The timeline showed cocktails at 6, dinner at 7, and Darren's speech at 8:30. The AV system notes indicated a projection screen behind the podium for a career highlights presentation. Perfect. I photocopied everything and returned the folder to Leah's desk with a candy bar on top, her favorite kind. She winked at me from across the room. That night, I started planning exactly how the evening would unfold. Darren wanted his moment in the spotlight. I'd make sure he got it, just not the way he expected. Thursday's networking mixer gave me the opportunity I'd been waiting for. Alexandra Hartman's assistant, Caroline, stood alone by the bar, looking overwhelmed by the crowd of executives trying to get her attention. I approached with 2 glasses of wine. Escape route? I offered. She accepted gratefully. These things are exhausting. Tell me about it. I'm Madison, by the way. Strategic accounts. Caroline. I basically run Alexandra's life, she laughed. We chatted about harmless things, the weather, the venue, the mediocre appetizers. Then I stared carefully. Your company's diversity initiatives are incredible, I said. I wrote my thesis on Hartman's inclusive leadership model. Caroline brightened. Alexandra's passionate about it. She says it's not just good ethics, it's good business. I wish more leaders thought that way. We had an incident last week where a male manager, well, let's just say his views on women in the workplace belong in the 1950s. Her expression hardened immediately. Seriously? In 2024. Poured coffee on a female colleague and told her to leave sales to the big boys. In front of 20 people. Caroline set down her glass sharply. Please tell me he was fired. Actually, he's getting promoted next week. The look on her face told me everything I needed to know. The hook was set. Friday morning, Darren cornered me at the copier. He'd clearly heard about my conversation with Caroline. The executive gossip network was faster than email. I hear you've been telling stories, he said, standing too close. I kept copying my documents, steady and calm. Just networking. Isn't that what you taught us? Build relationships. Careful, sweetheart. You don't want to make enemies. I turned to face him fully, meeting his eyes. Neither do you. His face flushed red. Is that a threat? It's an observation. Hartman Industries values certain things. Reputation matters. You think you're clever, he stepped even closer, his coffee breath making me want to gag. But you're just a little girl playing in a man's world. After next week, I'll have the power to make your life here hell. Or end it entirely. We'll see, I said, collecting my papers. What's that supposed to mean? It means, I said, walking past him, that next week will be very interesting. He grabbed my arm. You try anything at my party, and I'll destroy you. I looked down at his hand on my arm, then back at his face. You already tried that. How'd it work out? He let go, uncertainty flickering in his eyes for the first time. The weekend was for preparation. I sat at my kitchen table, laptop open, assembling my masterpiece. The coffee incident was the centerpiece, but I had so much more. Meeting recordings where Darren explained why women were too emotional for leadership. Email screenshots where he took credit for my work. The photo from last year's Christmas party where he'd grabbed Leah inappropriately. She'd given me permission to use it. I edited carefully, creating a highlight reel of Darren Kellerman's greatest hits. Each clip flowed into the next, building a narrative that was impossible to deny. The coffee incident would play last, the grand finale that connected all the dots. I added subtitles to make sure every word was clear, even in a noisy ballroom. Set the whole thing to automatically play once started, no stopping, no pausing, no escape. 3 minutes and 47 seconds of pure truth. I saved it in multiple formats, uploaded it to 3 different cloud services, and loaded it onto 2 USB drives. One for me, one hidden in my desk at work. I even emailed it to myself at a dummy account, just in case. Then I tried on my yellow dress. The dry cleaner had done their best, but the faint outline of the stain was still visible. Good. Let it be a reminder of why I was doing this. Monday morning, 3 days before the party, Leah pulled me aside in the parking garage. If this goes wrong, you're done, she said. Not just at this company. Darren has connections everywhere. He'll blacklist you. I know. HR will blame you for creating drama. The executives will close ranks. I know. You might have to leave the industry entirely. I know. She studied my face. But you're doing it anyway. Some lines, once crossed, can't be uncrossed, I said. He crossed all of them. Leah was quiet for a moment. Then, I heard about the AV system for the party. My friend from IT is running it. He might be sympathetic to your cause. His daughter just graduated with a business degree. She's been dealing with her own Darren Kellerman. She handed me a business card. Thomas Park. Tell him I sent you. That afternoon, I met Thomas for coffee. He listened to my plan, watched the video, and shook his head. In my day, men like that got away with everything, he said. Maybe it's time that changed. He explained the AV setup. How to connect. When to strike. What to do if something went wrong. Once it starts playing, he said, I'll make sure it can't be stopped. Technical difficulties, you know. We shook hands. The pieces were falling into place. Tuesday night, I stood in my apartment, holding the yellow dress up to the light. The stain had faded to a faint shadow, barely visible unless you knew where to look. The dry cleaner had apologized profusely, offering to pay for a replacement. No, I'd told him. It's perfect as it is. Now I hung it on my closet door, ready for tomorrow night. My battle armor. The dress my mother had believed would help me change the world. I thought about her final weeks, how even when the pain was unbearable, she'd insisted on hearing about my work. About my dreams. About the future she wouldn't see but believed in anyway. Promise me something, Maddie, she'd said near the end. Don't let anyone make you small. Not for their comfort. Not for their ego. Not for anything. I'd promised. Then I'd spent 2 years letting Darren Kellerman chip away at me, piece by piece. The comments. The stolen credit. The public humiliation. Tomorrow night, I'd keep my promise. I pulled out my phone and rewatched the video one more time. Darren's sneer. The laughter. The coffee spreading across fabric my mother's fingers had chosen. Almost time, Mom, I whispered to the empty room. Almost time. The riverside ballroom glowed under crystal chandeliers, each table draped in white linen and centered with elaborate floral arrangements. I arrived precisely at 6:30, late enough to make an entrance, but early enough to assess the battlefield. I'd chosen my timing carefully. The yellow dress drew eyes immediately, bright as sunshine against the sea of black and navy. I felt the whisper start, saw the recognition dawn on faces. She's wearing the same dress. The coffee dress. Madison. Darren's voice carried across the room. He stood near the bar, champagne in hand, surrounded by his usual circle of admirers. His face went through several expressions: surprise, anger, then forced amusement. Interesting choice of outfit. It's my lucky dress, I said, walking past him toward the registration table. You remember it, don't you? I signed in, collected my table assignment, and spotted exactly who I'd hoped to see. Alexandra Hartman stood near the windows, engaged in conversation with Richard Cross. She was younger than I'd expected, early 40s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing, including my dress. Her gaze lingered on it, then moved to Darren, who was now loudly telling a story about sensitive employees who can't take a joke. Thomas from IT caught my eye from behind the AV station. A subtle nod. Everything was ready. Darren worked the room like a politician, shaking hands and slapping backs. Every conversation included a humble brag about his promotion, a joke about finally getting the recognition he deserved, and at least one subtle dig at female colleagues. I stayed on the periphery, watching him dig his own grave deeper with every word. He'd had 3 champagnes already, his voice getting louder, his jokes more crude. The thing about managing women, I heard him tell a group of male executives, is you have to handle them like children. Gentle but firm. They need constant validation. One of the men looked uncomfortable. That seems a bit realistic. Darren interrupted. Trust me, I've been doing this for 8 years. I know what works. Alexandra Hartman had moved closer, ostensibly examining the dessert table, but clearly within earshot. Her expression remained neutral, but her assistant Caroline was typing furiously on her phone. Richard Cross called for everyone to take their seats. Dinner was served, salmon or steak, neither of which I could stomach. My phone sat in my lap, the video ready to stream to the projection system at the touch of a button. Darren took his place at the head table, basking in the attention. He raised his glass to me mockingly from across the room. I raised mine back. He had no idea what was coming. 8:15. Richard Cross tapped his knife against his crystal glass, the universal signal for silence and speeches. The room quieted, all eyes turning to the head table. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're gathered here tonight to celebrate excellence," Richard began. "Darren Kellerman represents everything we value at this company: leadership, innovation, and results." Polite applause. I connected my phone to the AV system using the credentials Thomas had provided. The projection screen behind the podium flickered to life, showing the company logo. No one noticed the small, connected icon in the corner. "Darren has consistently exceeded expectations," Richard continued, "and we're proud to promote him to Senior Director of Strategic Accounts." Darren stood, straightening his tie, that familiar smug smile spreading across his face. He approached the podium with the confidence of a man who'd never faced consequences. "Thank you, Richard." "Thank you all," he began. "This promotion isn't just about me. It's about building a culture of excellence, where the best rise to the top." My finger hovered over the play button. "I've always believed in leading by example," Darren continued. "In showing my team what real success looks like." I pressed play. The screen behind him changed. The coffee hit my dress on the 60-inch screen in vivid high definition. The sound echoed through the ballroom speakers, the splash, the gasps, then Darren's voice, crystal clear. "Oops. Don't worry, Madison. I'm sure you've got plenty more where that came from. After all, I bet you're better at shopping than closing deals. Why don't you leave this game to the big boys?" The ballroom went dead silent. Darren spun around, his face draining of color as he watched himself on screen. He rushed to the AV station, but Thomas threw up his hands in mock confusion. "Technical difficulties, sir. It won't stop." The video continued. Meeting after meeting. Women are emotional buyers. Less drama with men. Maternity leave is a burden on productivity. Someone in the audience muttered, "What the hell?" Then came the email evidence. Darren taking credit for my Stratton Group proposal. For Leah's creative campaign. For Jasmine's client retention strategy. Alexandra Hartman stood up slowly. The movement drew every eye in the room. She looked at Richard Cross with an expression that could freeze fire. "If this is the leadership at your company," she said, her voice carrying across the silent ballroom, "Hartman Industries will be reconsidering our partnership." Immediately. The video ended with Darren's voice one more time. "You ladies tend to take things too personally." The screen went black. The silence lasted maybe 3 seconds. Then the room exploded. Alexandra Hartman's team was already gathering their things. 2 other client CEOs followed suit. The journalists were typing frantically on their phones, no doubt live tweeting the disaster. This is taken out of context." Darren stammered into the microphone. "It's been edited. Madison, she what?" Alexandra Hartman's voice cut through his panic. "She recorded your actual words? She documented your behavior? She exposed what kind of leader you really are." Richard Cross looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. "Alexandra, please, let's discuss this." "There's nothing to discuss. Hartman Industries doesn't partner with companies that tolerate this behavior." She turned to leave, then paused. "And Mr. Kellerman? My company has a very long memory. And an even longer reach." Darren tried to laugh it off, that nervous chuckle that had always worked before. "Come on, it was just office banter. Everyone knows I was joking." No one laughed with him. Charles Whitman, the investor, stood up next. "I've seen enough. Richard, we'll be reviewing our position in this company." The exodus began. One by one, the power players left. Darren stood at the podium, still gripping the microphone, watching his future crumble in real time. The promotion speech he'd practiced died on his lips, replaced by desperate silence. Darren's attempts at damage control were painful to watch. He cornered groups of executives, trying to explain, to minimize, to blame me for setting him up. But the evidence was too clear, too comprehensive, too damning. It was just jokes, he insisted to a group of board members. Jokes that cost us Hartman Industries, one replied coldly. By 9 o'clock, the ballroom was half empty. The celebration had become awake. Richard Cross hadn't moved from his chair, staring at the empty projection screen as if it might offer some explanation for how badly he'd miscalculated. I stood to leave, and Darren intercepted me at the door. "You destroyed me," he hissed, his face red with rage and humiliation. "No," I said calmly. "You destroyed yourself. I just made sure everyone saw it. I'll see you for this." Defamation. Illegal recording. Single-party consent state, I replied. And truth is an absolute defense against defamation. Good luck finding a lawyer who'll take your case after this goes viral. His hands clenched into fists. For a moment, I thought he might actually hit me. Then he saw Thomas from IT recording us on his phone and stepped back. "This isn't over," he said. "Yes," I said, adjusting my yellow dress one final time. "It is." 2 days later, the email came through at 9 a.m. sharp. Company-wide distribution. Subject line, organizational changes. Effective immediately, Darren Kellerman has resigned to pursue other opportunities. We wish him the best in his future endeavors. The subtext was clear to everyone. By lunch, the real story had spread. Hartman Industries had not only pulled their contract, but had shared the video with their business network. Darren wasn't just leaving our company, he was effectively blacklisted from the industry. Someone had leaked the video online. #CoffeeGate was trending on professional networks. Darren Kellerman became the face of toxic workplace culture overnight. His LinkedIn profile disappeared. His Twitter went private. Even his golf club membership was under review, according to Leah's sources. I sat at my desk, reading the emails flooding in. Former colleagues sharing their own Darren stories, women from other departments thanking me for speaking up, and even some male colleagues admitting they'd been uncomfortable with his behavior, but hadn't known how to address it. Richard Cross called me into his office that afternoon. He looked older, tired, defeated. "You could have come to me," he said. I tried. HR shut me down. "You were too busy celebrating Darren to notice what he was really doing." He couldn't argue with that. "What do you want? Money? A promotion? An apology?" "I want change," I said simply. The transformation was swift and comprehensive. The company announced a complete diversity and inclusion overhaul. Mandatory training for all managers. A new zero-tolerance policy for discrimination. An anonymous reporting system that bypassed HR and went straight to an external review board. They offered me Darren's position. Senior Director of Strategic Accounts. His corner office. His salary. His authority. I turned it down. "I'll take a position on the new leadership committee," I said instead. "Part-time. I want to ensure this actually changes things, not just looks good on paper." They agreed immediately. They couldn't afford not to. Leah got promoted to creative director. 2 other women who'd been held back by Darren's boys' club mentality moved into management roles. The culture shifted, slowly but noticeably. A month later, I got a message from a woman at another company. She'd seen the video, recognized her own situation, and found the courage to document and report her own Darren Kellerman. He was fired within a week. Then another message. And another. The video had become a catalyst, spreading through industries like wildfire. Women everywhere were standing up, speaking out, refusing to be silenced. My mother would have been proud. I stood in Darren's old office, my office now, technically, though I only used it twice a week for committee meetings. The golf trophies were gone, replaced with plants. The MBA from Columbia had been removed, leaving a clean white wall where I'd hung a simple frame containing my mother's favorite quote, "Well-behaved women seldom make history." The yellow dress hung in the closet, cleaned and pressed, a reminder of everything that had happened. Sometimes I wore it to important meetings, a subtle power move that made certain people uncomfortable. Good. I walked past the coffee station, where a new sign had been posted. Respect is everyone's responsibility. Some people thought it was cheesy. I thought it was necessary. My phone buzzed with a text from Caroline, Alexandra Hartman's assistant. Hartman Industries was returning, but with conditions. Full audit of company culture. Quarterly reviews. And they wanted me as their primary contact. The big boys club just got smaller, I said to myself, sliding my nameplate into the holder on the door. Darren Kellerman thought spilling coffee on my dress would humiliate me into silence. Instead, it became the splash heard around the corporate world. He took my dignity for one moment. I took his career forever. And I did it all in the same yellow dress my mother bought me, the one that was supposed to change the world. Turns out, she was right. So that's my story. What would you have done? Craving more secrets, lies, and betrayal? This is just the beginning. Hit subscribe. You won't believe what comes next.